My name is Deepa Menon. I've been an attorney since 2005. I'm not quite sure how it's been that long. I started my practice working at a big firm in Silicon Valley in their intellectual property and general litigation groups. I left and started my own firm, my own practice in family law. And the reason that I'm doing this presentation is I have decided to go back and work for someone else, something I didn't think I'd be interested in doing again. And I started learning how effective and powerful LinkedIn can be. And I had a meeting with Suzanne and said, I'm learning so much, I really wish I could share it. She said, you know what, you can. So here we are. So I kind of want to get an idea, a read of how many people have a LinkedIn account currently. Excellent. And how many people are keeping it up to date? Okay. And how many people post updates? It's okay if you don't, I'm just kind of trying. And how many people use it on, let's say, a weekly basis? Okay, great. I'm sort of going to start at the top and talk about your profile. So the mouse is a little dodgy over here, a little dodgy over here. Okay. So when I decided to start doing this search, the first place I wanted to start obviously was with my profile, because when you're starting to reach out and make connections to people, etc., they're going to look you up. So I didn't want something which for me was a little bit out of date. And there are a plethora of resources online as to how to bring your kind of the current best practices in terms of getting your profile up to date. One of the things that I recommend, which is at the bottom of this yellow handout, the LinkedIn webinars. At the very bottom, there's a ustream.tv link. Those are webinars that LinkedIn has produced for people who purchase their, I think it's called Job Seeker Premium membership. However, you do not have to be a member to view the webinar. And I would definitely recommend it. It just sort of the soup to nuts. I think there's 2 of them, and there's also, you can download the PDFs of the slides that they're showing. I found it particularly helpful because they go through and show you little templates, which it can be really difficult, or it can be a real challenge to reach out to people, so sometimes having something to work off of can be very helpful in that way. So I would definitely recommend checking out the webinars and the PDFs. Okay, so the first thing is, in some ways, I find LinkedIn similar to Facebook in that they're constantly adding functionality. Now, that can be, it's a good thing and a bad thing. They're obviously adding things that they think are going to be of value to members, but it means that you sort of have to keep up with what's happening so that you can change your profile appropriately. So one of the sort of new things, let's see if I can do this. I do have more hand-eye coordination than you would think. It's really the mouse. Is this thing right here, which is called, which is the headline. So I've changed mine to reflect that I am currently seeking a position. And this is the thing that comes up, let's see if I can scroll. When you come up in searches, etc., let's see. Go ahead. So if you look here, you can see some of the people who, if you viewed my profile, you may have viewed some of these other people, and you can see what some of their headlines are. This is Stacy, who's a wealth advisor and certified divorce financial analyst, etc. So the idea is this is an opportunity to put some information in front of the person who's viewing your profile, or not even at the point of viewing your profile. Like they may just be looking at search results. Right? So this gives them an idea of who you are and potentially what you're looking for. I wish that I had done a before and after of my profile, because so this activity area is where if you're sharing updates, and I will admit I'm not very good at sharing updates. I'm a prolific Facebook updater, but not so much on LinkedIn. The reason this is helpful, it does an interesting thing. So I just posted this because I wanted to be able to show you that I posted something. But to be quite honest, but what happens is if you, on your home page, if you shared something, it will tell you how many people have looked at it. And I don't mean how many people are in your network, it's how many people in your network have looked at it, And then if somebody in your network likes it or shares it themselves, it will show you how many of those people have shared it. So this is or can be an opportunity to get beyond your own network. This could be relevant. I posted something a little bit random, which really is the result of a conversation I had with that particular friend. But you could be posting things, if you, especially if you have a very specific thing that you're interested in. You can post the recent cases or recent conversations that are happening in that area of law, and kind of start to get your name out there. I'm not saying as a subject matter expert or anything, but as I think I remember that name.
And I can just add,
Yeah.
that when employers look you up, I mean, we all know when you apply, they're going to Google you and they're going to check your LinkedIn. And so if you've got things in the subject area that matches the job you're applying to, then you look like someone who's interested in that field, who's been keeping up with the latest news in that field. And all you've done is just post something, it's as simple as posting on Facebook, but it makes you look relevant and current.
Right, right. So down here in the background of the summary, let's do this here. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about how I created this. What I discovered doing my research on LinkedIn profiles is that increasingly there's sort of practically a search engine optimization factor that you need to consider, which is recruiters and potential employers are entering particular search terms and then kind of narrowing down to candidates. So for example, if I should choose an area of law that I'm familiar with, if I were looking for an intellectual property attorney, I might enter something like copyright law, DMCA experience, ITC cases, something like that, and then narrow it down to San Francisco Bay Area, that kind of thing. So you want to be putting the key search terms in your summary, in your essentially your resume that's posted on your profile. The question, of course, becomes, what are those search terms? So what I did was, I went through and kind of cut and paste a bunch of job descriptions of positions that I was interested in, and went through and tried to find the commonality. And I might have taken it a little bit far, but I sort of grouped things together. So there was an entire section that had to do with negotiating and drafting contracts. There was another section that had to do with compliance with California and federal regulations. So I created a table which said, this is what I've done. I'm not saying you have to. I had sort of the category of requirement or description, like a bullet point list of the descriptions that fit. And then I really went through and thought about my experience and tried to find ways that I could model my experience, even if it's not directly on point, to that category. So for example, negotiation and drafting of, let's say, intellectual property licenses. And let's say I didn't have that, but I had something else, which could be real estate contracts, it could be prenuptial agreements, but there's a way to talk about experience that you've had as analogous to what they're actually seeking. So I went through and made a table and then sort of brought it into the summary in my profile. I'm going to take a little break and ask if anyone has questions.
One thing I notice about your summary is that it's sort of like what people tend to do at the top of resumes used to, not legal resumes so much, but in a lot of other fields, that they encourage you to put a summary of skills or that kind of thing at the top. And you can do that on LinkedIn, and then you don't have to do it on your resume. It's not really done in legal resumes, but this is a great sort of way around that by getting to do it here. And another thing is that you can make yourself, you can include information about things that you would like to be doing, even if your resume locks you into what you've done in the past, and it's hard to get out of that format. You have to kind of follow what the tradition is. But on LinkedIn, you can write about what you would like to be doing, so you can show yourself as you'd like to be seen and not necessarily just as the things you've done in the past only.
Exactly, and I think that's also important with, as I said, with the search term thing, because you may not be able to put IP licenses in your resume or in your experience, but you can talk about, it could be something that you've written for a journal or even blog posts, whatever. There's an opportunity to work in some of that experience that may not be directly relevant or may not be paid experience, but could still be potentially attractive to an employer. So the experience section is kind of more the traditional resume section. So down here, okay, so these are things that have been added fairly recently to LinkedIn, including volunteer experiences and causes, so languages, etc. Well, we'll talk about skills in a second. So this section, there's a lot of writing out there that recommends filling this out, which may seem sort of counterintuitive. But what I would say, having also been on the hiring side, I did quite a bit of hiring committee work when I was at a large law firm. This is what a lot of people end up resonating with, or feeling that there's some kind of a connection, is where you volunteer, what's important to you. Very often, a lot of resumes sort of blend together, you know, oh, okay, you graduated last semester, you're waiting for bar results, but this is where it can sometimes get interesting and where you can sometimes forge more of a connection. Okay. Skills and expertise. I would say my jury is out on this. I try and monitor it because my network, bless them, they're always trying to say that I'm good at many things that I don't actually do. So I try and make sure that it reflects things that I actually do, like other things that, yeah, like property law, I've never handled anything really property related. Okay, these are connections. I'm trying to find groups. There we go, groups. Let's talk about groups and how important they are. So these are some of my groups. I clearly belong to many groups. This is an opportunity to, first of all, demonstrate your interest in a particular topic or a particular area. For example, let's say that you were living here but planning to move to Austin, Texas after graduation or at some point in the future. You can start joining groups that reflected being in Texas or Austin, so that when someone looked at your profile, they would see, oh, okay, currently he or she is a student in San Francisco but has some connection or some intention of moving to Texas. Okay, let's see if I can do this. So let's click on. Within groups, there are conversations that go on. So you can comment or like, etc. And there is a way to start connecting with people even within groups. That may or may not be relevant depending on the group, the size of the group, etc. But let's say that Richard Tom was something that you wanted to meet. I think you know, since it seems like all of you sort of use LinkedIn, that LinkedIn limits who you can contact to sort of 3 degrees. So the people directly in your network are your first degree, the people that they know are your second degree, the people that they know, friends of friends kind of, are the 3rd degree. So generally speaking, it can be difficult to make contact with someone who's not in that circle of trust. But if you are in a group with someone, unless they've locked down their profile significantly more than most people do, you can email them and say, you know, Richard, we're in the California Minority Council Program group together. I saw your recent post about whatever. I'm interested in a similarly related topic, etc. How many people use groups or belong to groups currently? And do you actually read what's going on in the group? Okay. So let's do a little thing so you can see what groups are. So we're in groups. Let's do a quick search just so you can see what it looks like. Someone give me a topic that they would be interested in joining a group about. Okay.
I heard several people say criminal defense.
Great.
Their career goal.
So let's try it out. Okay, so you need to request membership. Some groups you don't. What's also interesting for me anyway is that I can see right off who I already know that's in their group. are there questions about groups, or does anyone not see how this would be helpful, or do you have questions?
So Deepa talked about how to email someone within a group, that's a way, if you're in a group with someone, you could get access to them that you couldn't have if they weren't in your second or third or first degree connections. And so the reason that you might want to would be to get an informational interview, or because there's a job posting at their firm and you might want to contact them and reach out proactively and say, I've applied for this job, but we also have this other, we're both in this LinkedIn group, so I wanted to introduce myself. Or you can, ask them for career advice, a little coffee thing. I can have an appointment with anybody and talk to you more about doing that kind of networking one-on-one, because it seems really scary at first, and I can kind of talk you through some more specifics about that. But those are different reasons, and I bet Deepa's got some other ideas too about why you would want to reach out to people besides just the how.
Actually, let me ask, how many people are doing informational interviews? Okay. And how many people are sort of going to general networking events and trying to meet people that may at some point be helpful? Okay, great. I wanted to talk about companies, and then I want to talk about expanding your network, and because they're sort of interrelated. So I did a search on Ipsy, which is a local company. So we'll click on Ipsy. So here's the company page, and it tells you a little bit about them. They're based in San Mateo. So if there are companies that you're interested in, you can click on here. It's grayed out because I'm already following them, the following button. And that means whatever updates they put on their LinkedIn page will show up sort of in your feed on the homepage. So here we can see that I have 3 second degree connections, and this is a pretty small company, and there are 26 employees who are on LinkedIn. So these are my 3 connections, and I can see how we're related. That's my friend Anne. I can't really tell who that is. And actually, let me try and look at this next one. Oh my gosh, the mouse is not being my friend. Okay. The reason I wanted to click on this was so that I could show you this little special circle, which says Marcelo Cambros is part of the Open Link Network. And the reason that's relevant is, I talked about the umbrella of trust and how it's fairly easy to get in touch with people within that, but it can be difficult to reach people who are not. Anyone who has that little special symbol, you can email them directly, or email them through LinkedIn directly. It's also helpful to see this so you can see how you're connected. Okay, I'm not even going to try and do that, but if you see the little arrow that says 1 shared connection or 3 shared connections, you can click on that and see in what way you're related to that person through your network. LinkedIn has a way of doing introductions. Okay, I'm just going to do this. LinkedIn has a way of doing introductions. Awesome. Okay. Awesome. Okay. I'm just doing this so you can see. This is where introductions are here. So what an introduction would be is, let's say that I wanted to meet the gentleman that I previously had here, Marcelo. I would click on him, and then it would say, or maybe the woman where I had 3 connections, even better. So it would say, of the 3 people who you're connected to, who do you want to introduce you to? I think her name was Jennifer, I don't remember. And so then I would write in that email to my connection, let's call her Kelly. Kelly, I see that you're connected to Jennifer at Ipsy. I'm really interested in meeting her because whatever it might be. There's a position at Ipsy that I'm interested in. She practices a special area of law that I don't know very much about, but I'm interested in. Whatever it might be, and say, would you mind introducing us? I think I might have. Yeah, I gave us a bit of an example of a related template on the yellow sheet. So that is sort of companies. Does anyone have questions around companies? Does anyone follow companies and do that whole thing?
I had a question.
Yeah.
When you follow a company,
yeah.
Does that show up on your profile? Let's say
that's a great question. So there is a way on here, which I will not find here. It may be this, I can't remember. There's a privacy control that you can set so that when you're adding companies, the world does not know. So it doesn't say like Diva just added Google or whatever on your feed, because you may not want that. So usually what I do is, personally, I don't really care, but I know that some people do, depending on kind of what their situation is. So I turn it off, add as many companies as you want, turn it back on.
Okay, so it won't show up on your feed, but will it still show up on your profile?
Let's go look at my profile. I don't think so.
I mean, it'll probably show up on your profile because it's your profile.
Okay, so let's go look at someone else's. This is my friend Red. She'd be so pleased about this. There's Bruce. Oh, so it might show up down here. That's a good question. I had not prepared for that question, or I would have chosen a friend who I knew had followed a number of companies.
That's fine. I'll
You'll
poke
do
around
some
a
additional
bit,
research.
yeah.
I don't think it does, simply because knowing Red, she's following more than the law and sustainable harvest.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. That's a great question. Thank you. Are there any other questions about companies? I've seen some slightly puzzled faces. Even if it's not company related, go ahead and ask. Yes.
Just wondering if you can also have that anonymous setting so that if I update anything at all on my profile, I don't need to make an announcement like, oh, she updated a skill.
Yeah, I think that's so that when I just can't do it again. But when you're under privacy and settings, there is a way. There's an whole area called privacy.
Okay.
So I think that, and the reason I can't really give you a definitive answer is because I swear they've changed it a couple of times in the last 3 to 6 months. But I would definitely check there and see kind of what you can lock down and when, because sometimes when I redid my profile, I completely locked it down so that I could make whatever changes and find my, typos and all that kind of thing before sort of reestablishing myself. So I do think that's a good idea for when you're making some kind of basic fundamental changes that you don't want the world to see that you changed your headline 3 times because you're trying to get the wording right.
Yeah, it does have that function, and I saw it on your profile when you went by it briefly, not on your friend Red's, but on your own. It said like turn off broadcast, something like that. And I highly recommend using that because it does send multiple announcements to everyone you're linked to already about every change you make.
Now, just to be clear, that shows up in the feed. It's not like it emails everyone.
Right, but I get an email from LinkedIn once a week that says, see so-and-so's new title and 3 other new updates that happened in the last week.
Okay, so this. Next, I want to talk about people and networks. So this is the contacts page, and this is sort of a new thing that they're doing. I don't know what that is. I don't think I can make it go away. Okay, we'll just ignore it. Sort of across the top here, it is sort of becoming mind melding with Facebook. So it tells you if it's someone's birthday or if it's someone's work anniversary, or if they have a new title. This can be network. So a lot of people, myself sometimes included, add people to the network and then sort of don't do anything about it. It's like, okay, you're part of my network. But that's not really all that effective kind of moving forward. So one of the ways in which I actually do find this little thing at the top helpful is it's an opportunity to sort of reach out to 1 or 2 contacts even a day and say, hey, you know, I see that it's your 3-year anniversary at Google, that's great. Just to sort of reestablish that contact and make some kind of a connection. Does that make sense? Okay. So I think these are people who have been in touch with me recently. How many people are adding people to LinkedIn after a networking event? And what kind of I'm just going to put you in this phone. What kind of an email do you send them through LinkedIn to say, I'd like to add you to my network?
Something to the effect of, it was nice meeting you last night at the BASF event. I enjoyed talking about blah, blah, blah. It would be great if we could get connected on LinkedIn.
2 thumbs up, that's exactly right. The sort of suggested or standard thing that LinkedIn does is something like, I'd like to add you to my network, which is true, but may not be that helpful. So something that I really should have talked about while I was on profile is the importance of having a picture. Now, clearly from like my hair, this was a couple of years ago, but it's important to have a clear, professional photo.
You can come to LCS, we will take the photo for you. Seriously, I mean, it's hard to get a selfie that looks good, that doesn't look like you're doing this. So we're totally happy. We've got the digital camera on site. I mean, it's a really easy thing. It's better if you have an appointment, but we will try to make sure that we get you a good photo. So on a day when you think you look good, it's a good hair day, and you're wearing a top and you've got a suit jacket with you, stop by and we'll take your photo.
Right. And I'm on the other side of it now. I have people, trying to connect with me that are in law school or recent graduates, and it really helps me it's very helpful to see at the BASF event last night, but it's also nice to see the faces, and I can sort of start to pull it together. So definitely have a professional photo. Does anyone not have a photo on their LinkedIn? Doctor, heal thyself. So I wanted to, I'm sort of trying to talk about expanding your network. Are there any questions about that? Does anyone do the thing where you reach out to people you're interested in meeting?
Not yet. Not people I don't already know.
Okay. Is that something that you would want to do?
Possibly. Depending on how well the person that I am connected with knows that person.
Right. I will say, I guess I'm being sort of really honest about it, that was really hard for me the first couple of times. I think that there's a tendency to think, like, why would they even want to talk to me? So I asked a friend who, well, it doesn't matter what company, who works at a company to connect me with a connection of his who was in their legal department. There was not a position open at that company. I just really wanted to talk to her about what is it like to be in-house and what is it like to be in-house at that company. I will say that people, actually all through my legal career, people are so generous with their time and really willing to talk to you. Well, okay, that might be pushing it too far. 80% of people are really happy to talk to you and are happy being lawyers. I think that might be part of it. So I would really encourage you to reach out to the people that you're interested in meeting. The thing, again, having been on both sides of it, the thing that's really important is being very clear about what kind of a commitment time or otherwise that you're asking of them, right? So if you were to send me an email and say, I'm interested in starting my own practice, I see that you started a practice, we have these people in common, or this other thing, volunteering, whatever, in common, would you be willing to have a phone call with me? Chances are I'm going to say yes. If you say, are you willing to have dinner, that might be a no, but to be honest. But so sort of if you can, and that's a much more helpful request to me than sort of like, I'd like to connect with you. That might be okay, but I'm never going to suggest, I'm unlikely to suggest that we meet for coffee or have a phone call based if your request is, let's make a connection. Does that make sense? Okay,
Can I just piggyback on that for half a second?
I love
Just
it.
to add that if you're connecting with a GGU alum, they're even more likely to say yes to a request for assistance or information. And you can find GGU alums on the LCS online. You can also use martindale.com as a great way to find alumni at a place that you might be interested in working. And so there's some different ways that you can find out who to reach out to. If you see an opening at a place, you can check and see who there are. If there's any alums there, you could reach out to them and say, I'd like to apply to this, but I just want to hear from you. What is it like there? All kinds of ways that you can reach out.
the other thing that's sort of to piggyback off of you now, the other thing that you may not know or may not be aware of is if you're applying to a position, it's often handled differently if the materials come from someone who already works there versus you applying through whatever, Indeed.com or whatever. So definitely if you have a connection, definitely call them up and say, I'm interested in this particular position. I reach out to my friends who are not in the legal department. So let's say you know a project manager, I'm just going to say at Google, but there's a position open in the legal department. There's nothing wrong with contacting your person in whatever way you want and saying, hey, there's this position open in legal. They'll, do you know anything about it, or do you know someone I can talk to? Very often they're happy to put your information, your application materials in, because sometimes there's a bonus in there for them. But talking to my friends who are at companies, various companies value applications that are kind of direct referrals at a much, I can't really give you a rate, but like at a much higher level than people who simply applied online. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Can you think of anything else I should be talking about?
Do you guys have questions about any other aspect that she hasn't touched on, or want to go deeper on anything that she talked about so far?
Yes.
Other than what you've already discussed, what's the best way to get found by recruiters on LinkedIn? Is there
Sure.
some special technique for that?
I'm going to say we're moving beyond what I really know, but I'll come up with an answer for you because I'm a lawyer.
Okay.
There are a number of groups that are focused on people who are seeking jobs. So there's specifically the LinkedIn Job Seeker Premium group, which you do have to pay to be a member of. But there are a number of other groups that are sort of job focused, and I always see recruiters posting in those groups. And I will say, after I discovered that and joined those groups, I had a number of recruiters reach out to me or connect to me. So that might be one way. And then, again, if you're in a group with someone, you should feel comfortable emailing them and saying, hey, I noticed that we're in the Bay Area real estate professional seeking employment group, blah, 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 right?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And the search term thing, which I didn't know before I started doing my research.
Deepa, do you have any recommendations about sort of if you get requests to link to someone on LinkedIn that you don't know, or who you know but you don't necessarily think the most highly of, or anything like that?
Okay, so those are two kind of very different situations. And people, I think this is sort of a philosophy, and people have different philosophies. When you reach a certain number of connections, I think it's like 500, it no longer even says how many connections you have, it just says 500 plus. And at that point, it's like some magic thing where people that you totally do not know are going to ask to connect to you, because it's sort of like a signal boost, right? So because your network is so much bigger, all of a sudden they're going to have all these secondary connections that they wouldn't if you weren't their connection. I will say that I don't like and don't generally connect to people that I don't know, or who, I don't have some connection to. A recruiter in the Bay Area, yes. A realtor in North Carolina, probably not. At the same time, I think I'm fairly liberal, and so if someone wrote me and explained why they wanted to add me as a connection and it kind of made sense to me, I'd be okay with that. So let's say that it was the realtor in North Carolina. They said, I'm doing an evening program at such and such law school. I'm interested in family law and I'm planning to move to California. I'd probably be okay with that, but not kind of, I receive random requests, which is also partly because I'm Indian anyway. Honestly, yeah. In terms of connecting to people that you do not have a professional relationship with, which is sort of your second question, I think it depends on sort of how professional you think they are, which I feel a little bad saying, but when you're connected to someone on LinkedIn, they can send you things and that kind of thing, and it can reflect on you and your professionalism. So, someone who was part of my dinner party group, yeah, I'm probably okay with that. I have some really good connections from that. Someone that I did some raucous activity that I can't even think of right now, maybe not.
Is there, can you unfriend people?
Yeah.
Or
I'm
do they
sure-
know it and?
That's a really good question. I have not had to do that. I'm sure there is a mechanism for how to do it, but I would have to Google it and ask that exact question, which is, because the last thing you want is, Deepa Menon has,
I'm pretty sure
unconnected you.
it doesn't broadcast.
I wouldn't want them specifically to know, and I definitely wouldn't want it in the similar, has added a connection kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like they would have thought of that and handled it, but I would check first.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any more questions for Deepa?
I have 2 questions.
Great.
The photo thing,
Yeah.
I guess you really answered that. We can come into LCS and
You
get
can
a
come
photo.
to LCS and we can walk over to the library. I can also, if enough people are interested, we can just set a time and I can put it in Law School News
Headshots.
and say, we'll
Yeah.
be doing headshots from 12 to 1 in the library in front of a nice wall of books. Dress nicely from the waist up that day.
Yeah, because you
Also
say,
wear pants.
I'll wear pants.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I can set that up and we can announce it.
Okay, because you said professional photo, and I don't
Yeah.
know if you mean pay for a headshot or just a
I don't think-
nice-ish looking photo of yourself.
I think a nice-ish looking photo of yourself, looking the way you would if you were walking into an interview.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, perfect sense.
Yeah.
And then my second question is, I noticed that your LinkedIn says premium on it,
Yes.
which means you pay for something extra.
Yes.
What is that worth it?
That's a great question. I pay for a job seeker premium because that's kind of where I am right now. It gives me some benefits. I'm not really sure. So for example, here I am. I'm in jobs. So if I apply to jobs through LinkedIn, which there's a special way of doing that, and it sends my LinkedIn profile and I can attach a cover letter and all of that. If I do that, it bumps me to the top of bumps me to the top with everyone else who's paid for it, so that my materials are first.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And it also, so you can pay for something called InMail, which I think is not the best name, but what it means is if you're trying to email someone with whom you have no connection, you can use an InMail. So I receive a certain number of those every month because I pay for premium. I think you can also just purchase them, and I looked at this at some point. I could be making it up, but I think they're around $10 a pop.
Okay.
So if there was something you were really focused on and you wanted to reach out to that particular recruiter or someone who you think would be a great mentor to you, and they're in no way in your network, that's something that you could also consider. Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you so much, Deepa. This has been really great.